welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. So, quickly, our sponsors. We are proudly sponsored by Ugoku caps. You've seen me wearing them on the podcast. You can get the discount codes from me. Send me a message. I'll send them to you. They're floating around. We're also sponsored by Phoenix head torches. Same thing goes. If you're after a discount code, just get in touch. There are there on the web, but if you want them personally from me, I will send them to you. And also, finally, we are proudly sponsored by Home Trails. So Home Trails is my YouTube series interviewing famous trail runners from hopefully around the world at some point. In the UK at the moment, where we interview them on the trail in the home trails. You understand what it is, don't you? You've listened to the show. That's hopefully turning into a bit of a brand, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Okay, on with the actual show. Okay, so welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. Tom Hoyle, aka the hiking hairdresser.
Yeah, although not many people say I actually do cut hair.
Yeah, so like recently I've been like re-interviewing people. So this time of year, obviously, it's Spinemas. So I'm like interviewing people, like returning guests, normally coming on and talking about what they've been up to and what they're planning to do at the spine and everything. But you are a new guest to the show. So obviously people, if they're connected with the spine race, they'll already know who you are. But can you give us your background? So obviously, if you've listened to podcasts before, you know that I do the superhero question for new guests. So all of us as ultra runners and however we're involved with trail running and ultra running, we're all superheroes in one way or of another. So Tom, what is your superhero backstory? What's your origin story? How did you get into trail running and get to the position that you're in now, sort of in being known as one of the longer standing race photographers for the spine?
Yeah, so basically, I sort of just randomly started running one day, and just gradually built up a distance. And then it was actually a friend of mine who, a client and a friend, who told me one day that she was she was running a race, and it was 47 mile, and I was like, didn't realize these races existed really. As races, I knew the distance existed, but not as races, and that kind of got me thinking. So I started like, I was already doing sort of marathon length hikes and things. So I was like, well, if I'm gonna do that distance, I might as well run some of it. So I started training for that, and then she sort of mentioned about the spine race. I didn't really know the spine race existed. So I volunteered on it. It was actually only summer last year, when you were doing the Challenge North. Um, and yeah, by chance, I actually, through a WhatsApp group that was being talked about taking pictures in the checkpoint, I was like, well, I'll bring my camera. My background before I was a hairdresser, I was a trained professional photographer, so that's why I've got the gear. Yeah, I bumped into Will and I said, "Oh, do we send these pictures over to you?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, I've just got my camera with me. I just literally have basic camera, basic lens. Didn't take all my gear." I was like, "Yeah, that's great." And then I think it was less than 24 hours later, I was in the media team taking pictures from inside the checkpoint, which someone led to believe that sort of style of photography wasn't being done at that point. From inside the actual checkpoint, it was all out on course. And I think the interaction sort of, obviously dot watching is a massive sport in itself, I suppose. And yeah, people were sort of appreciating seeing what was actually going on inside the checkpoints.
Yeah.
And then it sort of spiraled from there, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so you're sort of really well known in the spine community now, aren't you? So our first encounter then was like you say,
Yeah.
so that was Challenger North last.
Yeah.
That was last
At
summer, wasn't it?
Bellingham. Yeah, last summer, yeah, at Bellingham, yeah.
Last summer of 23. And that was at Bellingham, wasn't it?
Yeah, 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 that's one.
Yeah, Bellingham, yeah. So I'd sort of stumbled into Bellingham, being quite sleep deprived, and it was the middle of the day, wasn't it? It was definitely
Yeah,
daylight.
yeah, it was hot and sunny. Yeah,
Yes, that was it. So I'd sort of never, I didn't realize that at Bellingham that you have all those tents out in the field, and that's the
yeah,
basically that's where you sleep. So yeah, middle of the day, sun was shining and it was hot. And I was feeling like I needed to have a sleep, and I just thought, oh, it'll be great. I'll just get my roll mat out and just and have a have a snooze sort of thing. So and I tried my best to have a
yeah,
sleep. I don't know how long I was in there for at all. But all I remember is a photographer sort of pointing a camera at me and saying my name, and I couldn't quite figure out how you knew what my name was, even though
yeah,
obviously everyone knows who everyone is because you can just look at the tracker, can't you, and just see who
yeah,
everybody is.
yeah, exactly.
I couldn't
Yeah, yeah,
understand why you were referring to me by my name, and then you mentioned that you started talking about Will and everything and the media
yeah, yeah,
team. I was like, oh, okay, right. So people are aware of who I of who I am, and that was our first encounter, wasn't it?
yeah. That was one. Yeah, yeah. And I don't know whether you got any sleep there, but it's such a busy checkpoint, especially in the summer. That I don't know how many people actually get sleep there.
Yeah, you can't. Surely the only way you're going to get sleep is if you're there at sort of in darkness
Middle of the night.
hours,
Yeah,
more maybe like in the evening sort of thing. But it is sort of yeah, it's always really busy there. And the other thing I always remember about that checkpoint is always is always I remember being stitched up because I asked for and no offense to any like vegans and the vegetarians out there, but the food there was I ended up getting the non-meat option for
yeah.
dinner, and I was annoyed because I was eating it. I was thinking, these aren't sausages. I know that these aren't sausages. They've told me that they're sausages, but they're not sausages. And I was a bit annoyed about that. So I didn't get the food that I really wanted. I didn't get the sleep that I really wanted. But the thing I do remember is the kindness of the volunteers, and them going the extra mile to help me out with socks. So I'd sort of burnt through all of my socks in that race because you would have seen people coming through the carnage with people's feet was absolutely
Yeah,
like unbelievable on that race, wasn't it? Like just people's feet
yeah, yeah,
absolutely
yeah. Because I think because we'd had that rainstorm at the beginning of the race, hadn't they? And yeah, it was like trench foot everywhere. And yeah,
uh,
I remember giving somebody a pair of my waterproof socks, and I think towards the end of the race, I gave somebody a pair of. I looked down at the what they were wearing, and I was like, "What size are you?" Because they were struggling to get the trainers on, and they were like, "Oh, I'm a 9." I was like, "Right, well, I've got a size 10 in the same brand that you're wearing. Um, take them. Like they stink. Like they've been through bogs. They've been washed, but they've been through bogs. They stink. Just take them."
Yeah, it's amazing actually that it's until you've sort of done the spine race or been involved with it, you don't always sort of realize how involved the people on the volunteers get with the race. That talk about the spine family and everything. Um, but it really is like it really is like a family. Like it's like when you get to a checkpoint that they look after you like your family, and they'll like lend you bits of kit, and give you bits of kit. Um, yeah, so the guy that I'd gone through all of my socks, and I was just like the only ones I got left in my drop bag were just like stinky, got holes in, and all horrible. And the guy the I can't remember what his name was now, but he was like, "Don't worry, I've got a spare pair of socks. You can have them." I'm like, well, I need to know who you are so I can get them back to you at the end of the race. And he's like, don't worry, you can just have them. It's fine. And obviously that was the right thing to do. You're not going to want socks
Yeah,
back from somebody when they're like that
no,
far into
wouldn't have
that
been able to
race.
achieve it, and yeah.
It's not a Yeah, you don't want those socks back, do you? Basically.
No, well, frame them up or something.
And then the other time that we met on the race, I owe you a debt of gratitude for the borrow of those gloves. That so I came into Hawes. It was Hawes, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
horse. Yeah, it was horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were at Hawes, and I came into Hawes, and I'd been
Had it,
feeling.
had it, had it snowed at that point already? I can't remember.
No, it was just super, super
Yeah.
cold. It
Yeah.
was, yeah, it was, it hadn't started snowing yet, but it was literally like it was once
It
I
was.
got, no, I was doing pretty good. I was feeling quite strong. Like I got to the bottom of the Cam High Road, and I felt really good and was pushing and thinking, yeah, I'm doing really well. I'm going to get to Hawes and have a bit of a sleep and then carry on and I'll be golden. But I was running low on calories and everything, and I got to we come over the top of Cam High Road, and then you think that you start to see the lights of Hawes, and you think that you're there, but actually you're not there because you've still got to go down and sort of round the back and then come into Hawes and go up the road to it. So
Yeah.
it feels like a bit of an insult that you know that you can see the lights of the place where you're heading to the checkpoint, but you've got to sort of circle around the back of it to get to it. And by that point, my hands were just absolutely just. Obviously, it was just like lack of calories and sleep deprivation and everything. But I was feeling like I could have I could have ended my race at Horse because my hands were so cold. I've never been, I've got all of my layers on, I've got everything on, and I was still like shivering and starting to feel like and if I don't get to the checkpoint soon, I'm going to be completely hypothermic. And I was with a French guy, can't remember his name now, Pierre, can't remember his last name. It's good to know that his name was Pierre because I can remember that French name. And he basically sort of like shuffled me into the checkpoint, got me there. And then you were there as the
Yeah,
as
I was there editing pictures at the time, I think, and then I saw you came in and came and have a chat with you, and I remember saying to you, "All right, how you doing?" And you went, "Oh, I'm actually fine. It's just I can't feel my hands." So I just sort of said to you, "Right, okay, what are you wearing?" And you were like, "I've got two or three pairs of gloves on or something like that.
yeah yeah
All thinner gloves, weren't they?"
yeah
I was like, "Oh, well, have you not got any thicker ones or whatever?" You're like, "No, no, I've not." I was like, "All right, well." I've I may have a pair that I may have just dropped in front of you.
yeah yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know whether we broke any rules or not, and whether I would have been disqualified
Uh,
taken
I mean,
outside house.
I'm terrible with autism and ADHD. I just like put things down and forget I put them there.
Those gloves were an absolute godsend. They basically saved the rest of my race because for what was to come after that as well. So yeah, trying to think what gloves I've got with me. So I've got like a pair of waterproof like
Yeah,
deck shell gloves. I'd got some Montane um like sort of puffy ones, but they were finger gloves, they weren't
right,
mitts.
okay. Yeah,
And then I'd
yeah,
got some waterproof over mitts. So I'd sort of gone through the combinations of using, the what I thought were the really warm Montane fingered gloves and having mitts over the top, and it just wasn't enough. So
yeah,
I know when I've spoken to people about the race, like since, and then they've sort of asked, what's your advice? Like, the number one thing I've said is like, other than having loads of different pairs of socks to work your way through, having having glove options is like absolutely critical to
yeah,
that race.
definitely.
The cat's got,
Yeah, I mean, from like a media perspective, that's why I had them gloves with me because you're taking pictures like and you're hanging about and stuff, your hands get cold. And I've always found it such a pain just trying to get your fingers in gloves and stuff. So I always wear a thin pair of gloves, which I can take pictures with and got all my dexterity, and then I'll just put mitts over the top. And particularly like the big thick alpine mitts.
yeah. So they were basically like fur lined, weren't they? Fur lined
Yeah,
mitts.
yeah, like the Montane Alpine waterproof winter, whatever they are.
Yeah. That's our recommendation for anyone doing the race this year. Get yourself some fur-lined montane mitts.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Yeah, because after that point, yeah, it started to. I think the snow started right. So I left there, and it
Yeah,
must have been the early hours of the morning when I left there because I got up to Great Shunner Fell, went over Great Shunner Fell in the dark, and I remember that was the first time I put my micro spikes on so that I could get down the back end of there because I knew from the year before when I was on the media team. So me and Tanya, we went up Shunnerfell, Great Shunnerfell from the other side and saw how icy it was, sort of going up there,
yeah,
and that wasn't even there was snow there actually at the time. There was a bit of snow there, but how icy that track was.
yeah,
So I knew that even though I was fine, sort of coming over from Hawes sort of side and going up Great Shunner Fell from it's hard draw, isn't it? You go up from hard draw, don't you? Um,
yeah, yeah,
Sort of going over Great Shunner Fell was fine. Sort of going up and climbing up through the snow and ice and everything, that was okay. But once you got to the top and started to come down the other side, there's what would have been a stream sort of running down where the path
yeah,
was,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
that was just
it's like a, is it like a an access track or whatever, a fire road or something like that, and it's I think it all just rains off, doesn't it, and
so
freezes
yeah,
over.
everything melts down there and just it. So obviously with the conditions that we had, like whatever it was, like -15 or something, it was just literally just like she. It was there was so much ice that you could sort of see like boulders through like an inch thick of like ice sort of thing, and I was kind of like picking my way across the top of it, and I thought at some point I need to put my microspikes on.
Yeah,
Um, and there was two ladies came behind me and they literally like sort of just basically just I was sort of picking my way across and they basically just like plowed past and I realized they'd already put their spikes on, so I was like, why am I messing around like trying to pick my way through this when I can literally just put my spikes on and sort of plow away. So
it's like
that's
I would imagine it's that thought process, isn't it? It's just a thought at that point for you, like you're 100 and what 130 miles, something like that into the race, and you probably it's just a thought of bending down and getting it out your bag and spending that 5, 10 minutes just putting them on, which will probably save you an hour.
yeah exactly yeah
It's just that thought process, isn't it?
yeah it's not I always remember like Nikki Spinks sort of saying, her advice with big races was, if you think about it once, do it. Because if you keep thinking about it and thinking that you need to do something, then by the time it gets to like the third time where you think you need to do something, it's probably going to be too late. You'll either be
Yeah,
too cold or you'll be too wet to put your coat on or something like that. So I was like, right, okay, I need to pull myself together and just stop, even though it's not the perfect place to stop and start getting stuff out your bag. I managed to start get my spikes on, and then literally it was I'd used my spikes before, but I'd never used them in such extreme conditions, and I realized why they are on the kit list because
yeah,
it goes from being like ice skating to just you can just like run or jog or hike
yeah. I
fast
mean,
normally.
like from a media point of view, like everything you guys carry, we try and carry because
Yeah.
it's and we're not out in it all that time. We're trying to stay as close to a car as we possibly can. But if even going, a couple of miles up the track, it's just needed.
Yeah. What's your sort of experience been then? So now that you've sort of had that experience of like the summer race and then the winter race, this last year, it's still this
Yeah,
year, and it's still
yeah,
2020.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The conditions
Just
that
about.
conditions that we had, like -15, and somebody said there was -20, but I don't know whether that was true or not. But I do
I
know
think it
that
was more feels like my say. I think with the wind chill because the wind got up, didn't it?
yeah.
That storm and things, and yeah, it was cold. It was
Yeah.
cold.
So how do you sort of prepare for that? Because I know that I'm coming out of like it's not Middleton anymore. What's the name of the checkpoint it changed to further up? Can't
Oh,
remember the
I'm terrible with names.
um
Uh,
I can't remember what
but
it
yeah,
is, but what used to be the Middleton checkpoint changed
yeah,
to
yeah,
now. But coming out of there and going up towards High Cup Nick, I've never been in cold like that before. I've been in when I went to Canada and it was -20. I went snowboarding in
Yeah.
-20, but it was a different cold over there. It was like a dry cold.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I've been to Canada minus 21, 22, and it's like say you're kind of wandering around in a fleece and
Yeah.
between places and but yeah, I think I remember watching a podcast about an SAS soldier and they were saying like about SAS soldiers being the best in the world and whatever, and they were saying it's purely down to the training conditions. Everything's wet and damp even when it's cold.
Mm.
Um, and that's the hard part, and that's hard part for you guys, and it's hard part for us behind the scenes. Like we're constantly we're trying to use the drying rooms as much as you guys are, um, and, But we like I say we obviously there's a massive safety team behind, and they're all watching us as well as watching you, and
Mm.
SST and things when we have to run things by them.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'm not adverse to going out wild camping in the winter. I quite enjoy it personally in my personal life, and I would quite happily do it on the race, but I'm not sure SST would like it.
I know, yeah, so when I was on media on the 20 yeah, on 2023 winter 2023, I remember being I was I was with Tanya, so I was the wheels and she'd got all of the gear and everything, and SST were sort of telling us where we could and couldn't go on the route. So
Yeah.
we'd sort of gone and parked um at the bottom of what's the village where when you get off Crossfell and you get down into that next village. I can't remember the name of
Oh,
where the
Cargill. I
angel
can
of
never say it. Gargill.
Carrigal, yeah, the
Gargill.
where the angel is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go and visit the angel? Did you go and see it?
I've not actually. No. I was actually up there a couple of weeks ago with Ali and Damien on their spine training weekend. Yeah, that was an experience. That was in that storm, whatever it was called, Storm Dara or whatever. Yeah, I hiked up from there to Dragshot, which is like 6.5, 7 mile up and down, and then same back
Yeah.
down. And yeah, it was brutal, absolutely brutal.
Mm.
Every weather under the sun got thrown at me, and to the point where I got into Dragshot. And I don't know about you, like when you wear waterproof trousers, quite often your legs still feel damp, don't they, and things. You don't really think anything of it. You just think, oh, it's just damp cold. I got into Dragshot and I looked down, and my pants that I had on had actually been blown apart at the seams. The wind was that strong. Um, and so I got in there, put my second pair on, and then coming back down, and I had a cover over my bag, and the same thing happened to that. It just got blown apart at the seams. But it's like 60 to 80 mile an hour winds, just constant wind. But yeah, I thought yeah, it's perfect for training weekend. It's perfect spine weather.
That's it. I think you've got to be prepared for anything, haven't you? If you run in the
Yeah.
race, you're in that mindset anyway, aren't you? But what's your how do you sort of get into the mindset of being prepared to be on the media team for races like the winter spine race?
Much the same as you guys, really. The problem I found is getting a bag that can hold all your gear. I mean, like, I've been quite fortunate in the fact that, in one respect, that I've kind of got known for my sort of one-to-one sort of environmental street style photography. So I can tend to get put on checkpoints and finish lines a bit more. So I'm never too far from a warm building, but um, equally, I do like to get out. And for instance, like it's not so bad when you're near that because you don't you just grab your camera, you've got your layers on, you've got gloves and whatever, you just go. You don't have to carry the gear. But then um, I've actually just invested in a bag called a Shimoda photography bag, which is perfect because it's designed so you've got a compartment for all your camera gear, and you've got a separate compartment which is big enough to put all mandatory kit basically.
Mm.
Obviously, it means carrying a lot of weight. Like I've not even weighed it, but I've probably weighed up to about 20 kilograms of all my gear in it. So it's a lot to carry again. So, um, but yeah, me personally, anyway, not can't speak for the other guys, but me personally, I'll try and take pretty much all the mandatory kit that you guys try and carry.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I was speaking to Sarah Perry through Messenger, and I think she posted about she got a load of gloves or whatever for the spine race prep, and sort of dropped a cheeky message like, well, if you happen to drop a pair in a size large. And she sort of asked the same sort of question, and I was like, well, yeah, we just try and stay stay as close to the vehicle as we can, really. So if we need to get warm, we can get warm, but equally just big mitts and whatever
Yeah.
else. And
I think that was one of the things that I'd said to her when I interviewed her because I interviewed her after the backyard ultra
yeah,
championship and stuff, and after we'd like finished recording, she was like, "Oh, can I pick your brain about the spine and stuff?" And I was like, "What are you asking me for?" I'm like, "You're the professional runner," and she was like, "Yeah, I know, but can you sort of give me any tips?" And I was like, just repeated, what I'd said to you earlier of like just making sure that you've got if it's a bad year for weather, just having gloves because that's the kind of thing that it won't put you out of a race, but it could very nearly put you out of a race. Just getting
yeah,
your fingers can get so cold that you can't do anything with them, and then you
yeah.
can't.
It's not just the cold, is it? It's the wet as well. It's like when things get wet, they get wet, don't they? And they don't dry out very quick until you get to a checkpoint where they can dry them out. And
Yeah,
I think having that option with your dry bags and having that option, like it's a bit that same feeling as putting a fresh pair of socks on, isn't it? You put a fresh pair of gloves on, you feel better for it.
yeah. Well, how do you manage to sort of keep your kit dry? Because I always remember like seeing Ryan like taping all bits of stuff to his drones and trying to keep it dry, and and then like I remember borrowing Will lent me one of his cameras so I could go and take
Yeah,
some stills of Jacob's ladder and the lenses were like steaming up and stuff.
yeah.
How do you sort of cope with looking after your gear in those extreme environments?
Basically by buying the most best weatherproof gear ever. But the problem I have with my camera gear is the lenses are metal cased, my cameras are magnesium bodied and things, so the cameras are cold, holding them, so hence gloves. And the same with the lenses as well, they get cold. It's once you're out in them, they kind of got used to the atmospheric temperature and stuff. It's not so
Mm,
bad. But it's going from the outside to the inside and the inside to the
yeah,
outside where the problems come, and it's just a case of just having multiple gear and just being patient, really.
mm.
Put, putting them on the top of radiators and stuff, probably not advised, but you do it. um, Sticking them under your armpit and all over. But it makes you laugh because I sort of learned in an era of film, and film, you need it to be warm, like when you're shooting film. So it is a traditional thing that you stick your film under your armpit while you're hiking up somewhere. Um, and it's probably much the same with digital gear, it's just with the actual gear rather than the film.
I'd imagine it's quite difficult to hike up Great Shunnafell with a DSLR under your armpit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, again, the camera bags and stuff, they tend to be insulated and things, but yeah,
Yeah. It's a good point actually. I always forget that cameras are made, aren't they, to be light, which means that they use light materials, so like aluminium, magnesium, and stuff. And those
yeah.
materials are like super conductive to heat. So, I'm
Mm,
an engineer, so I know like if I'm making something and if I'm using bits like aluminium for something, if it's cold, it is really cold because it
mm.
draws all the heat out of your body and everything. So yeah, then getting frozen fingers when you're trying to press a shutter is a
Yeah,
is a real problem.
yeah. I mean, I did make the joke the other day, like, I've got one here, like, I just made a joke, like, well, it's parts of it, it's like, basically on that bit of paint, it's magnesium. I was like, well, you can make a spark of that if you needed a fire.
Yeah, we all remember that science experiment, don't we, at school?
Yeah,
Magnesium,
yeah,
setting fire to the magnesium. Yeah, you don't
yeah.
you don't want to be setting fire to your cameras though.
No, not at all.
Desperate times. Um,
Yeah,
But sort of tell me about the what you've been sort of doing then for over this last year because I remember speaking to you
yeah,
at the Spine at the start of the year and you were saying that you got this project that you were going to work on and you've been doing it over this year, haven't you? So what was the sort of
yeah. Over the last
the
6 months,
idea
really.
behind it?
Um, so it's kind of a bit of a mishmash, really. I suppose it's not going to be, but it was initially the idea is there is a space where there's so many stories, so many stories. Like that don't get shared, particularly in your mid-pack and your backpack runners, behind the runners. Some were quite, quite deep stories. A lot of them were quite deep stories on ultras. And I wanted a space to create a space and start telling. Obviously, podcasts are a great form of people telling stories, but sometimes they don't do short stories justice. I feel, and I want to create a space where long term I want to be starting to create sort of short films and things like that, to create reels out, I'll create some of it with YouTube, and then some of it will actually become um, proper sort of published short films. That's my long term goal,
Mm.
and that's kind of what I've been working on. So it was actually you that said to me, "It's like, well, what's stopping you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I suppose I should just get on with it and start doing it." You and Ali as well. So yeah, I basically just started by setting up my website, setting up my Instagram page, and sort of it was a space to post my images, post what I'm doing and things like that, and then just sort of start experiment with video and build upon that. And then when I was sort of creating my website, I decided actually, well, I should probably just put a little bit of a blog with a little bit of a blog write up about what's about the sort of experience at whatever I was doing, taking pictures at whatever. And I think coming from an artistic background as well, like um, I always, me personally, I feel like I don't know what it's to do with like my neurodiversities or whatever, but I feel emotion through music a lot of the time with images. So I decided to start pairing up my images with music. So in my galleries, I always have like a little music play button. Sort of advise people to press that and then sort of look through the images and just trying to immerse people into it. And I think that's what I want to try and do going forward with creating video and things. But ultimately, it's there to try and get people to share, like because some of these stories are quite like, uh, yeah, the rough. To be honest, some of the stories are rough, and raw. And my photography is very much real and raw, as I like to describe it. And um, yeah, just try and get people to share really.
Mm.
Bit of a mental health thing as well. It's like
Mm.
you can't keep it bottled up all your life, can you?
No, no. And yeah, I know what you mean about sort of music being paired to images, and that's something that I am a proponent of listening to music when I'm running. I know a lot of people are like quite, they can sort of get a bit shirty about it and be like purists and sort of be like, well, why do you need to listen to music when you're running? But I, like you, I feel like when you're doing something as tough as like the spine, sometimes you need something to sort of match the environment. And
Yeah,
I know that, when I've been sort of doing, I like to hark on about the past and how I used to be a faster runner than I am now. And when I was like sort of training for fast, like 50 Ks and 50 miles and stuff, there's no way that I could get through a race without music because I
no,
needed that. Not that I needed that motivation, but it was just like another level of um of grit that I could sort of add on top of what hopefully would be a good performance. If I added in music, that was the thing that sort of pushed me to an even better performance. Um, and with the
I think
spine,
sometimes as well, it's just filling that moment of boredom. When you're on such a long race, like sometimes you do have moments of like,
yeah,
it's not always going to be absolutely stunning views and stuff. Sometimes you do have moments of boredom. It's just that little bit of a distraction, I suppose.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I
and
know for myself, like I was running the lap last September, and there's a part where it's just a bit of a fire access road going up to Wansfell. I was on my own, I was in between, and I sort of set my eyes on a couple of runners in the distance who actually turned out to be some really good friends in the end that developed from it, which is what happens in these races.
yeah,
I just put my headphones on and I just put I decided that race I'd made up a random playlist of sea shanties. Just because every now and again I do like to make up a random playlist, stick it in. What's the worst that could happen? And I was going up there, and just a moment. If I'd had a camera with me, like just the lighting and everything, there's some sort of misty clouds sort of higher up, and you see breaking up the tops and the light, and as it's starting to go dark, and all of a sudden the song Cornwall came on, and it was just like yeah, just a moment where my hair stood up on my arms and just that connection. It was like the lyrics were "This is my Cornwall, this is my home." Was one of the sort of like main lyrics, and that got came on, and that sort of hit home. It was like I was looking around, and I was like, I absolutely love the Lake District. You know, it's just, and you know, that moment of like you kind of fall in love with somewhere, and yeah, it's that connection to music, isn't it? You know, when you're out and things. But yeah,
Yeah, it's like a memory. I was speaking to so where I work, we've got a couple of like young apprentices, and we were talking about music and I quite the it's like the generation now that are into music are starting to the into the sort of music that I grew up with in the 90s. So like grunge and a bit of
yeah,
alternative music and stuff.
yeah,
So they always quiz me about one of them in particular quizzes me about sort of what bands I've seen over the years, and every now and then I'll remember that a band I've seen or a festival that I went to, and I was like, oh, I remember seeing this band and they did this song, and I was relaying how I went to Glastonbury in the year 2000 and how it was perfect, and if I never go back to Glastonbury, I'm not bothered because it was absolutely red hot. It was perfect. I saw all the bands I wanted to see, and I've got that little perfect memory. And one of the memories was of the sun was setting, and Moby was on the main stage, and
yeah,
it was around that time when that album came out, obviously, um, and Porcelain. He was playing Porcelain, and the sun was going down, and that was an absolutely perfect moment in time that I'll remember, like as like a snapshot of that year, that summer. And I get that same thing with races. So there'll be
mm,
certain points on, say, on like the spine route, because I've done, I've obviously done the full winter. I've done the Challenger North, and I've done like the sprint a couple of times. I have like memories that are sort of locked in with the surroundings, that are locked in with music as well, because
yeah, yeah,
even to the point where, like in the winter just gone, I had a memory. I was up on the Cheviot like towards the end of the race, and I had a memory of when I was there in the summer for the Challenger North and the music that I was listening to then, and it made me like change what I was listening to and put on
yeah, yeah,
the same thing that I listened to in the summer because I wanted to have that sort of that recall of that memory. Is
yeah,
that the sort of thing that you're sort of describing with your sort of photography projects that
yeah, 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 definitely. It's like yeah, like that one song will ever forever be. I hope the dog's here now. He wants a word.
yeah. We welcome
um,
all guests on the show.
yeah. Yeah, that will always be in my memory and things. But I think for me, I actually feel emotion through music. Because I struggle to regulate emotion. Yeah, it's like I can look at a picture, and unless it's a great picture, whether that's my own or somebody else's, like I struggle to get a connection with it.
Mm,
Sometimes. Whereas if I put music that's sort of relevant to that time or that emotion, like I tend to get more of a connection. And I thought that was kind of where I was going with it, because I, I think it can't just be me that's that way out. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Like I know we all have our own uniqueness, but yeah, I thought it's a bit like in films, isn't it? You watch a film, and like I say, going forward with short films, I'll try and immerse different sounds and different music and things, because it's when you're watching a film, if you just put a film on and just put the natural sound around it going on, unless it's done great, like you're not going to feel that emotion. Whereas they start introducing a bit of music and a bit of background noise and things like that, and all of a sudden you're in that scene, aren't you? And it's like, well, why can't you do that with still pictures as well? You go,
mm,
it has been done before. It's been done in galleries and things. And you go into a gallery and you're encouraged to put headphones on or whatever, or they've got background noise on and things like that. And all galleries are silent. And that
mm.
that's an artistic choice.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that's sort of coming in now because of the advances in sort of media and social media and how we now, because at one point, like when I was on Instagram when it first started, and it was just literally
Yeah,
just picture on with a filter on, and that was,
yeah,
but now it's turned into this thing where you can't put a picture on in isolation. It has to be, you have to pick music to go with it, and people
Yeah.
kind of expect that connection with a song to go with an image.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. Not sure to be honest. That I mean, that's kind of relatively new to Instagram, isn't it? It's probably is
Mm,
the last couple of years, isn't it? So, um, yeah, I mean, it's a marketing tool, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's as much as it's a social platform, it's a marketing tool. Instagram and various social media platforms, and I suppose that they're using it as much the same at marketing, whether it's marketing or whether it's an artistic project. It's all about connection.
mm,
You know, whatever you're doing, at the end of the day, not necessarily a product if you're not got a connection to it, and that's how it
mm,
works. It's as simple as that.
mm,
But I also think it's a with social media in particular, it's about trying to make a difference, isn't it? Trying to make yourself stand out, and in a crowd of a million mundane people, not mundane people, but mundane content.
There's probably some Monday people on there as well.
Yeah, well, it's probably as well. Yeah, I'm probably one of them, but yeah,
But so you've had some great success, haven't you? Especially recently with with your
yeah,
page and stuff. So how did this sort of this friendship with Ali Bailey come about, and the resulting? So you were one of the photographers, one of the media guys that she sort of dragged in for doing this weekend that they put on, this training
yeah.
week. How did that sort of come about then?
So I've actually had some coaching with Ali over this last year, as part of the group coaching. Uh, I kind of, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd approached Ali last year. Um, about going doing one-to-one coaching with her, and I said at the time, it's the same old story, isn't it? I'm not ready. And it's like, when are you ready? And then the opportunity came up for group coaching, so I sort of bit the bullet and went down that route. And I've had my own struggles this last couple of years, and it's kind of links back to the spine really, where that's it was actually about 2 weeks before I saw you at the summer spine last year. I'd actually went to the doctors and decided to bite the bullet and get an autism diagnosis. And I started the process then, and I only got it my official diagnosis a couple of months ago. So yeah, that's kind of my own thing, and obviously Ali's brilliant at doing the sort of mental stuff. I'm not necessarily brilliant at doing it. And I'm still working on it. Um, it's an ongoing thing, and
Mm,
I think it's yeah. So that's kind of where my friendship with Ali uh, came from. And then she just sort of she'd mentioned about she'd spoke to Will about the girls all going on this weekend, training weekend, sort of. It's a holiday really for them,
mm,
but obviously they combined it and made it a training weekend. So we sort of backwards and forwards a little bit with Will, and Will doesn't drive. Obviously, I do, so we decided to go up and do it together. So it'd be a really interesting, fun weekend, and it was an iconic moment in time that just needed to be documented. Things that you
mm,
don't see. Whatever day it was. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you don't see you know 11, 12 all amazing, inspirational women out smashing bogs out on the Penham Way. And it just needed to be documented. And obviously, I did some drone footage and whatever else, and um, took some pictures. And obviously, I took that one picture in. Me and Will were sort of hanging around Hornstead, and I was like, "Do you reckon we can get all 12 of them in bed?" I'd probably a couple of weeks before, I just bought a new wide-angle lens as well, and I was like, "I can get them all in with this lens. Let's get them." And they're like, you're trying to, again, that's part of being a media photographer. You're trying to coax people in.
yeah.
Andy's brilliant at it. Andy loves a good picture, stage picture and things like that. But he gets great pictures for it.
Mm,
And it's trying to coax people in without realizing they're being coaxed in. It's a bit like a bit
mm,
of manipulation on our front. I'm like, oh, you're staying you're having a look in Horn instead. It's like, oh, I wonder, between me and Will, it's like, you can all get in that bed.
That is,
Um,
it's not a big, that isn't a big bed. I know
no.
from personal experience, it is not a big bed.
Well, that was the first time I'd ever been there myself, and I'd seen pictures of it. Like on pictures with a wide angle lens, it looks a lot bigger than it is.
It is. Mm.
Uh, um, and I was sort of stood on this little step that was there, back of sort of with my camera, sort of taking this picture, and it came out as a great picture. And I think it probably biased, but I think it will become quite an iconic picture on the quiet, of like say 11, 12, all amazing,
Yeah.
independent, inspirational
Wow.
women in the world
Wow.
of ultra. Yeah,
Yeah. It's been a year, hasn't it, for women's running?
yeah,
It's been an epic year. And
yeah,
obviously everyone needs to. Oh yeah, that's yeah. So you've seen that you reposted our trail
yes,
and
yes.
ultra running awards for 2024. Another little advert for it. So get voting. So we like like loads of people, we've just sort of been disappointed with the fact that Jasmine wasn't recommended for Sports Personality of the Year. And a few months ago, I was sort of knocking around this idea with Kate from Run Ultra, just like why are we all sort of pinning our hopes on the BBC, sort of
Mm,
recognizing the amazing things that have been done in our sport. Let's just put our own awards on. So we decided
yeah,
that's what we were going to do. And so get voting, people. If you're listening to this, get voting. Get on Tura TURA 24. There's a voting link knocking around for people to vote for. The best. Ultra Run of the Year, Performance of the Year, Race Photographer of the Year. So
yeah.
get people voting for you. You can suggest yourself, because all the suggestions that we've got on all the questions are just suggestions.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like yeah, I mean, I filled it in myself last night, and yeah, put a few extra ones in there because there's definitely some curveballs to throw in there.
Yeah. Oh
I,
yeah.
I I definitely put a couple of curveballs in there. People that yeah that are doing stuff that necessarily not everybody's seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Because it's funny, isn't it? The world that we live in, the world that the ultra running world is a niche sport anyway, and
Mm,
then the races that we're interested in are a niche of that niche as well, aren't there? So
yeah,
you know,
yeah, and
I
I think that's the thing. It's a niche sport, but from a public perspective and marketing point of view, it's like it's the fastest growing sport in the world. Something at one point, it's gone up like 300% or something like that.
yeah.
I mean, it's only what 3.5 years ago. I didn't really know anything about it myself.
Mm.
As a sport, obviously, I knew people were doing the distances and the FKTs and things like that. But um, yeah,
I think
I
it's
suppose, yeah, I suppose that's kind of like with my platform. That's kind of why it's giving like what you guys are doing with the awards. It's giving that space to publicize and big it up, and not
mm,
doing like the usual crap that that the BBC are doing, or even like the podcasts that are out there that are the small minority, and a lot of it are just showing the front runners. And
mm,
a lot of people aren't interested in the front runners.
no.
There's however many dots out there on the spine race, and people watching from start to end. So
Yeah.
and they get more invested in the end ones than they do the start ones a lot of the time.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely, that is true. I know that so after I was helping out well with the media team on the winter 23 race, um I I put out a little video of just of basically like of all the video shots that I'd taken. And that was basically just with my GoPro on like 5K. um, just little snippets of video and stuff that I'd taken of just everybody. And so there was front runners, there was people in the mid pack, there was people in the back of the pack. And I put that, just literally just like cobbled all of the footage together. Didn't edit it really, just put it together and just put it on YouTube. And the amount of comments that I got, people sort of sending me messages, sort of saying, "Thank you so much for putting this on. You videoed me like going up the cam up the Cam High Road, and I didn't think that anyone was going to see the footage. Um, I didn't make any of the daily like recap videos and stuff. So thank you for putting it on. And I think that's the sort of thing that people are keen, aren't they, to sort of see
Mm,
um everybody's race, aren't they? And I think that's what the the media team does so well with the spine, isn't it? Is you
Yeah, and it's hard because like obviously from a video point of view and they do the daily videos, like us guys in the main media team, like a lot of the time we don't really do any of that video or anything like that, see that video because it's so hard. And hats off to Ryan because Ryan runs up and down and he does that all himself because it's so hard to share video because of the file sizes and things remotely. So a lot of that is down to him, and I don't know how he does it to be honest with you.
Well, he's got helpers this year, hasn't he? He's
Yeah,
got
I believe so. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I'd sort of seen pictures of this year because of how well sort of women are doing in big ultras and stuff now, especially over this last year. There's been a lot of focus um on the women's race, and you must have seen those t-shirts sort of knocking around in the
Yeah.
US that
Yeah.
are like
Yeah.
here for the women's race. Um, but I was thinking, what would be a good thing for the media team would be like here for everyone's race.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly that. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're
Yeah. We're there from start to finish.
yeah, that's it, yeah. So from Sunday morning to when's it? I'm trying to think when the official cut off is. Is it the following Sunday cut off?
Well,
Saturday night?
yeah.
Yes.
I think that the winter is it that Sunday morning? Yeah, can't
Yeah, the
remember now.
early hours of
And
Sunday morning.
it mixes between the summer and winter, doesn't it? I think Saturday night is the summer one, isn't it? I think Sunday morning is the winter one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually 8 o'clock either way.
Yeah.
But obviously it goes on longer than that in the week because it starts on Friday, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Friday's check-in, and then you got the sprint race, and then you got the Challenger South, and then you got the main race and Challenger North. It all spirals, and um, that's why obviously it's down to costings and things like that as well. But that's why there's so many of us on the media team because it's 268 miles to cover, and it's not just 268 miles; it's 268 miles plus all the goings around and
Mm.
gets places.
Yeah. Yeah, you never sat around with nothing to do on the media team, are you? Apart from when
No.
you start
It,
editing and
if you
stuff.
if you are you have a missing something or doing something wrong.
That's very true. Yeah. What are your plans for what you're gonna do then for media this year then? Have you got a
Uh,
plan sort of laid out with Will, or are you?
no, not nothing planned yet. Nothing planned yet. I've got the week booked off my day job um, to spend hopefully all week there. I'd like to get personally, from a personal point of view, I'd like to get as many of the female races as much as that as I can, uh, and then sort of piggyback that with getting the mid and backpack runners. And that's the great thing with doing that. Doing that, you can get all of it
Mm,
um, because you're ahead of the race. Um,
mm,
so it's all coming through. It depends whether you're moving up or move down the course or staying in one area, whatever else really. But yeah, I'd like to get some of the women's race. I'd
mm.
definitely like to get some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that when I was helping out on the winter race, that even though we were sort of doing our best to cover the women's race, there was still complaints about not
Yeah,
enough coverage of the women's race, and I think obviously that's something that's evolved over time, hasn't it? Now that there is,
yeah, and it's hard because it's 24-hour, 7 days of the week race, and it's hard because we get sleep deprived as much as everybody else does. Things do get mislaid, and obviously there's a team of us, so we do try our hardest to relay to each other. Has this been done? Has that been done? And I mean, summer race, I got feedback from somebody about the sprint race. Obviously, the sprint race is not, it's no less or more than any other races, but
mm,
it's such a short race and it's over and done with so quickly that it soon gets overlooked. And it was somebody there hadn't been a post because I think the women's top three they'd finished in like the middle of the night. And me and Will were actually traveling up towards Hawes that way. And it was as simple as the fact that
there was
everything
no
had
one
gone
down.
to yeah everybody got the pictures were taken and everything was done, but it turns out actually getting posted. It was just an overlook.
Mm,
You know, it was something that was scheduled. It was there on the list of things to do, but obviously you had the sprint finishing and the Challenger South starting. I think yeah,
Mm,
Challenger South or the main race starting one or two.
yeah,
Uh,
you can't be in two places at once, can you? That's the
no,
thing.
you can't, and things happen, and they're all human.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm,
but it was later put up and rectified and things like that. But
mm,
and equally from an interaction point of view, anybody that does social media will know that putting a post up at 3 o'clock in the morning gets you zero interaction.
yeah, and you tend to spell things wrong and get things wrong when you
Yeah, exactly.
sleep deprived.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Yeah. Um.
Yeah, but I think the women's race is going to be interesting this year. I
Yes.
wouldn't
Yeah.
like to put
Definitely.
bets on it.
No. No. Not at all. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. My my recommendations. My money is on. So. Um. Although she's playing it down, I think Sarah Perry is going to do well. I know
Yeah,
she's sort of saying that she
yeah,
doesn't want the pressure of people expecting her to do well. I think she will. Despite that, I think she will do well. And I'm also interested to see how Mel Sykes does as well
yeah,
because
yeah.
she's coming back from she's coming back from brain surgery basically over the
Oh,
last
yeah, yeah,
and um and I think that if she'd not had that, call it a blip, a bit of a big blip, if she'd not had that, I think she would have sort of been continuing a meteoric rise to success. So I think she's going to do well, even if
yeah. I think Mel's been out there a lot, hasn't she, training and things, and Sarah's
yeah,
been out there a
she
lot
knows the ring.
training. Lucy's been out training a lot.
Mm,
Lucy's Gossage, and
yeah.
yeah, I think Mel. I mean, I make the joke with Mel all the time. I was like, "Have you actually got a job?"
No, no, yeah, she is that training a lot, isn't she?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but that's what you got to do, aren't you? I suppose if you're going to be there at the top, you got to be out there, aren't you?
That's it. Yeah, you got to put the time in, haven't you? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Amazing. So we are how many weeks removed now? Are we like 2 weeks away, aren't we? More or less.
3 weeks,
3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks away.
Yeah. Have you got any bits of kit that you need to get before the race? Are you upgrading anything, or are you
I've just bought a new camera a couple of weeks ago. Before I went and did the spine training weekend, the week before that, I bought a new camera. Purely so it's got uh, 4K video and a bit of slow mo possibilities. So that's why the reason I bought that really going forward.
Mm,
Just to have kit that can do both, so it's less kit to carry, isn't it? I've got kit
yeah.
doing both. I've got my old trusty out of the arc camera, which it's not the biggest megapixel, but I quite like the quality on it because it gives you more of that film graininess quality to it.
Mm,
Um, I mean, like my kit isn't the lightest kit, even though it's magnesium bodied. It's really not light at all. Uh, but it's all stuff that's designed to go to war zones, and it's a bit
yeah.
like going to war, going on the spine race or any other big ultra, and you need stuff that can do that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but
It is
no,
like
I think I'm pretty much up to date. I've got a drone nowadays, so I've got my drone.
what drone are you
Other,
using for the kit?
DJI Mini 4 Pro,
Mm,
DJI Mini 4 Pro, which I've pushed it in some questionable winds
mm,
um, against its thing. Yeah, it's fine. The only thing is when the wind gets up, it's more about moving footage rather than still footage. You got to get the drone moving,
yeah.
get the stability on it. But yeah, I might upgrade and do my pilot's license and whatever else, and upgrade and
A big
get a
one.
bigger drone. Yeah, get a bigger one at some point.
Mm,
But that won't be before the spine. What else have I got? Just looking at my bag here. I've got two bags over there. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much all rounded. I would tend to use a 70 to 200 mil lens, which is a good all round lens,
mm,
close up and far away, or a bit further away, not far away. But uh, actually, I've got my new 14 to 24 mil wide angle, a good old trusty. If I had to pick a lens, 50 mil, fifty
yeah.
mil prime lens. Can't go wrong with it. It's perfect documentary photography lens.
Mm, awesome. Right.
Yeah.
So we're only a few weeks, 3 weeks away from the big
Yeah,
dance. No,
from madness.
from the carnage. So yeah, so I'm gonna be up at Edel. I
Yeah,
don't think Will's 100% decided what I'm gonna do, but there's talk of trying to do some live podcasts and some interviews and stuff.
yeah,
So I'll be doing whatever I can do and try and be helpful and not be in the way.
yeah. And we've got some big presenters. I don't think they've been announced yet, but yeah, some big names coming to
Yeah, some
present.
big
So it's
names
definitely
turning up.
worthwhile for everybody watching. Yeah,
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 it'll be good. I'm sure it'll be the best. I mean, every year it gets better, doesn't it? So we'll
yeah.
keep doing
That's,
that.
that's
But
it. Yeah,
it's
we're 10 years in now, aren't we? So
yeah,
it's great to see that other big races out there, even on the other side of the pond, they're definitely watching all the Spine content because they're adapting their own content to doing
mm,
stuff what the Spine are doing, which is great to see, really.
yeah, yeah. I thought it was So I don't know if you caught my interview with Finn Melanson from Single Track in America, and he was saying how he's like an absolutely massive podcast over there, like huge following and
Yeah,
stuff, and he was saying that he's obsessed with the spine race and he loves all the coverage that gets put out, and he was saying that he he wanted to do the race this year but left it too late to sign up and missed it, and wants to definitely do it next year, and he's talking about bringing like a whole media team over with him
immediately. Yeah,
to cover him doing the race. So that'd be interesting. More.
yeah, and it's all good for Spine, and I know they do have, that does happen, and
Mm,
there
you
is,
see it, don't you? Yeah. Mm,
yeah, it does happen. I think Jack Scott had a photographer with him, didn't he, this year, following him around and things from Innovate.
mm.
Um, and it's all understandable, isn't it? Obviously, they all get their own permissions
Got
through the Spine Direct.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So don't just turn up and take photos. Although people do that, don't they?
People do that, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a big place to hide, isn't
Yeah,
it?
definitely. And
Yeah,
it's a public route, isn't it? So you
yeah,
can't really
exactly that. Yeah,
people from there. But
yeah.
obviously,
But let's not make it like the ETMB and have crowds of people. That's
yeah,
part of
yeah.
the enjoyment of it.
Yeah, that is low key,
Yeah,
but loyal followers. Yeah,
yeah,
looking
exactly.
forward to it. It's going to be good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this year.
Yeah, I
Although
am.
I will have FOMO of not doing the race, but then when I was doing the race this year, I was having FOMO of not being on the media team and finding out what was going on and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But I get the same thing. Like people say to me, "Oh, you're not going to give it a go." I was like, about not just the Spine, but various races. And it's like, yeah, but then what do I want more? Do I want to take pictures more? And
Yeah.
I think for next year, for me, I've had some bad ankle injuries that I didn't think were as bad as they were, and things like that. And I've had to, yeah, try and prioritize my own health and things like that. But I think it made me immerse that time I had out from not being able to run, made me immerse into the photography and media stuff. And I think
Mm,
going forward for next year, I think also the things that I've done with Ali and things like that, and realizing I don't do what I want to race with crowds of people. And the reality is, apart from a couple of select races, no, I don't. And I think for me personally, I want to go and do some solo routes, some
mm,
self-sufficient routes, whether that's hiking them or running them or a bit of both,
mm,
and then concentrate on the media stuff, and get the
mm,
coverage that way and get my race fix that way.
mm. Yeah, yeah. It's life changes as well, doesn't it? So,
Yeah,
you
of course
can
it does.
be, some years you can be racing, some years you could just be dot watching, some years you can be, doing media and stuff. So it's just about keeping yourself busy. And if you're not training or if you're injured or something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
trying to keep your mind occupied, and no better way than doing it with, you know, doing keeping entertained by the thing that you love by just following it.
Mm, yeah, definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Right.
Okay.
Appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on, mate, and giving us a
Yeah.
chat.
Thanks for having me.
That's all right. And where do you want to sort of direct people to sort of follow what you're putting out there online?
Yeah. So basically, away from my hiking hairdresser, I'm looking at more my ultra.im.possible Instagram, or my website is my one of them lines, what are they called? My possibilities, .co.uk. which all through my Instagram and Linktree and whatever else. But
Yeah. So people can just like search, go onto your Instagram, the hiking hairdresser, and just find
yeah,
everything through that anyway.
yeah, yeah. There should be a link on there, but yeah,
Mm.
through. It's definitely all on my other page.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
try and possible.
ultra impossible. Yeah, yeah,
Mm. Yeah. Right. So yeah, look forward to catching up with you at the spine in three
yeah,
weeks and having a chat. And if there's any bits of kit that I can lend you to
yeah,
repay the favor, I'll have all of my spine mandatory kit with me plus other stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for coming on. See you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'll see you then. Have a good
Cheers, mate.
Christmas.
Yeah, you enjoy a break, mate. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, will
Bye.
do.
Bye,
Cheers.
everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, 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 bye.